Hey, what's going on, man? Coach Tyler here with Black Diamond Softball and Fitness, and we got a brand new episode of the Foul Pole to Foul Pole Daily Show for you. Today is Monday, February 12th, and man, what a weekend it was. I know you guys were tuned in all across the board, whether you're watching it on ESPN or one of the networks, or man, I tell you what, I was checking it out on Game Changer. A buddy of mine reminded me that a lot of these schools run through NCAA and their Game Changer. So he sent me this little thing. He said, hey, man, just search up NCAA. You'll be able to pop up and check out all their feeds or whatever. Just like watching travel ball or high school ball. And some of the productions were really, really good. I was shocked at how good they were. It was sort of ran through the MLB network, which is really, really awesome. So today we're going to get into sort of a post-mortem, if you will, and kind of break down some of the stuff, give you some of my thoughts, and kind of go from there. Some big stories, some big topics, a lot of stuff going on. We're going to touch on Division II and Division III as well. But more importantly, we are going to sort of break down what I thought of everything. So coming into this week, I really didn't know what to expect. There was a lot left over from last year. How was UCLA going to respond to being bounced early? How is Oklahoma going to look? I mean, they've got their studs, and it's like sort of like a last run with their seniors. How are some of these ACC teams going to look coming off of last year's big runs? How is Florida State going to respond? And some of these mid-majors that don't act like mid-majors much anymore. So going into it, man, first and foremost, I guess what sticks out the most to me is UCLA. UCLA had a rough opening weekend. I had some really tough losses. First and foremost, got beat up pretty good against Texas this weekend. You got a team like UCLA that's a perennial powerhouse, and a legendary coach in Perez, and then just sort of the aura that goes with UCLA. This weekend they go 2 for 3. They get a win against Maryland. A 6-5 win, the first game of the season. Looked a little rough, looked a little sluggish. Maryland, it isn't a powerhouse by any stretch of the imagination, so you can kind of chalk that up to like a first game sort of getting together, playing somebody different type stuff. So you kind of look at that and go, okay, well, it's the first time out of the block, got some freshmen in some key spots, that kind of stuff. Well, then they turn around and they get beat by Texas 3-2. So you're thinking, okay, Texas is a powerhouse. Texas is solid. Texas is good. I get that. That's a rough one. Maybe they'll get them back the next time they play them. And then they go and get a dub against San Diego, which, again, San Diego isn't a powerhouse, isn't one of these perennial type teams that's there just year after year. So they get a close win 7-6. So then you're starting to see sort of a trend. What's going on in the pitching circle? And can some of these freshmen step up in these key moments? So, all right, so they're 2-1. What happens the rest of the weekend? Well, they turn around and they play Texas, and Texas absolutely comes out and blows them out of the water. Texas ends up beating them 5-inning game, beats them 16-0, just off the rip. Really got nothing going all game long. So you're thinking, okay, maybe they're going to bounce back against Oklahoma State. Well, Kenny Gajewski's got Oklahoma State absolutely rolling right now. Coming off of last year, maybe left a little meat on the bone last year, really left a bad taste in their mouth how things kind of went. So they jump on and they absolutely hammer UCLA. So where does UCLA go from here? Starting the season off 2-3. They got a couple of big games coming up, a couple of big-time matchups. So the sort of my point on UCLA, sort of where I'm coming from, is I'm not going to write them off yet just because it's a legendary program, legendary coach. I know they've got a great staff there. I know they've got some really good freshmen that have come in. They're going to inject some life into that. And they've been dealing with injuries. Number one, that's one of the things, man, when you have to start moving around some key pieces. There's a bad injury yesterday in right field. Girl looked like she twisted her knee up a little bit. I think it looked worse than it is, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm not a doctor. I don't know exactly the extent of the injury, but I know when you start moving pieces around, it does sort of affect the chemistry of your team. The voices are coming from a different angle. You got some players maybe playing out of position, but these girls are, softball athletes, and they'll be able to figure it out. So let's not write them off just yet, but they did drop to right around 22, 23 in the rankings, which rankings aren't that big of a deal right now. So outside of that, we can take a look at Oklahoma. Oklahoma sort of took care of business, had a couple of close games. They did beat Utah first game of the year, 13-0. They turned around after that and beat a very savvy, game Duke team. Beat Duke 3-0. Didn't really have a whole lot going offensively. A very good methodical game between both pitching staffs. Didn't really give up a whole lot. And then was almost an instant classic against Washington. Washington, very solid team. I think they're going to be around towards the end of the year. So keep them, sort of in the back of your mind. Check that team out. With that, you also have a big win over Long Beach State. Did what they're supposed to do. Go out there and dominate. Be the best team in the country, because that's what you've proved over the last few years. So let's see if they can continue that trend. One big thing out of this weekend, though, for sure, is Texas. And Texas can score some daggone runs. I'm telling you right now, Texas goes and does what they're supposed to do. They beat San Diego twice this weekend, 19-0 and 16-1, which is that's a lot of base runners and a lot of runs. They also ended up beating Loyola Marymount 10-2. Had a big win over UCLA 16-0, and they also beat UCLA another time 3-2 that we talked about earlier. Mike White's got that team playing good right now. Early on in the season, again, kind of where do you go from there? That's what Texas has done over the past few years. They jump out strong. They show you what they can do offensively, and you better keep up with them. And the cool thing is about Texas, man, it seems like they've got a pitcher after pitcher after pitcher after pitcher. So every year it seems like they, restock the stable, and they got a stud in the circle. So I'm excited to see what Mike White does this year with Texas. Another team taking care of business is Tennessee. Didn't really have a good showing in one game against Baylor. They beat Baylor twice this weekend. Once was 3-2. Another time was 9-1. And they also beat UT Arlington. They beat UT Arlington 15-0. Tennessee, I think, is going to be one of, if not the strongest team in the SEC this year. I know Georgia's coming. We'll speak about Georgia here in just a little bit. But with Peyton Gotcho in the circle, you have someone that is going to be up for pitcher of the year for sure. Going to be the pitcher of the year, I think, in the SEC without a doubt. I think if she does what she's capable of doing and what she's shown she can do in the past, then I think she's going to be the top pitcher in the SEC. And then, we're splitting hairs there to figure out who the best pitcher in the country is. But I think with Peyton in the circle, I think Tennessee's always got a chance to win. I don't see Tennessee losing too many games along the way, but it is softball, and we'll see what's up. So Tennessee's 3-0 on the year. Kenny Gajewski with Oklahoma State. At the end of the day, man, Oklahoma State put up some runs this weekend, did what they were supposed to do. I've got Oklahoma State in my power rankings. If you want to check that out, I posted that on Facebook earlier today. I've got all of them, D1, D2, and D3. I think Oklahoma State is one of my top 5 teams to look out for to actually make a run at it this year in the Women's College World Series. And to round out the top 5 from the weekend, you've got Georgia. Quietly goes 5-0. Not a whole lot of buzz around them. Kind of takes care of business and moves on. Another team that's going to be pushing Tennessee this year. I think Alabama does take a step back, but I don't think they take too far of a step back. I know there's talk about it, the pitching in the circle. They're young. What are they going to do? I think Alabama rights the ship at some point later on this year and figures out what they're going to do. Alabama, though, did go 5-0 this weekend. They beat a game Georgia Tech team. They beat a game Villanova team. Actually, matter of fact, they beat Georgia Tech twice. And then they also, Longwood is a solid team. Longwood beat some teams last year early on in the season. So, you don't want to sleep on Longwood. They ended up having to beat them twice, and they beat Georgia Tech twice. So I think Alabama's going to be there. Another team I think is going to be there in the SEC is LSU. They didn't give up any runs this weekend. So they beat Nichols 8-0. They beat Memphis 19-0. They beat Pittsburgh 5-0. And then they turn around and beat Pittsburgh again 7-0. And then they beat Memphis 8-0. So they didn't give up any runs this weekend. So they are rocking and rolling with a 0 whip and a 0 ERA. LSU, Tennessee, and Georgia. Those 3 teams I think are going to be at the top. But we'll see. The SEC is a gauntlet, if you will. I still think Tennessee is going to be my favorite to come out of there. Florida State, in the ACC, I think them and Clemson right there side by side with each other. I think Duke might be maybe a step above, maybe one run or two better right now. But Duke didn't look too bad against Oklahoma. They did beat a Nebraska team. They did beat an Iowa State team, and they beat Long Beach State 2-0. So taking this weekend, looking at the sort of the top 10 coming out of it, I think you still go Oklahoma. I think Texas moves up to 2. I think you got to put Tennessee at 3. They didn't do anything too crazy. They look good. They took care of business, do what they're supposed to do. I like Oklahoma State at 4. I'm big on Georgia right now. Washington, I think, did what they were supposed to do. Lost a tough one to Oklahoma, but was able to thump Nebraska. Actually hit them with a run rule first game of the season. Beat a Jordy Bahl. We'll talk about Jordy Bahl here in a little bit. She does have a bit of an ankle injury. They also beat Utah Valley, and then they beat Iowa State as well. Then you got Duke at number 7. I think you got Florida State, LSU 8 and 9. I think LSU probably steps up and goes to 8 there. I see a Clemson. They did lose their last game of the weekend to Missouri. Played a couple of big-time games, though. They did beat Missouri State, start the season off. Won a close one against Indiana. Was able to pull away from Liberty, beat them 7-3. Won a tight one against Oregon. I actually sat and watched that game, most of that. Really good game. I really like the defense from Clemson. I think if we can if we could see another pitcher from Clemson kind of take that next step. I know Millie Thompson's kind of been that, Robin to the Valerie Cagle Batman. She did take a comebacker this weekend. Hope she's okay. I'm waiting for Millie to sort of take her next step, if you will. Last year we saw it, man. They rode Valerie Cagle until the wheels came off, and she gave everything she had. She's not just a pitcher. She's a utility, so she can go over and give you first base. Even if she's out of the defensive lineup, she's going to be in the lineup offensively. So I think at some point, Clemson needs to kind of give her breaks throughout the year and not put so many innings on her. But we'll see. I like a Missouri team. Missouri's 5-0 right now, looking good. There you have an Alabama right there with them, a 5-0 team. Stanford did drop a couple of games this weekend to Kentucky. They lost one game to they actually got beat twice this weekend to Kentucky. I'm sorry. Lost twice to Kentucky. One was a 2-1, and the other one was a 3-2 game. They turned around and were able to beat Minnesota. San Diego State, they got a win against them as well. Tough game, but beat them 3-0. Kentucky is right there with Stanford. I think Stanford kind of takes a step back this year just because they lost some pieces last year going into it. I think they got one of the top pitchers in the country, though, in Canada. But we'll see. I mean, it's really early on. With Virginia Tech, you have sort of like a mosh of teams sort of in the top 25 right here. From I'd say 15 back, you're looking at teams like Kentucky and Utah, Virginia Tech, Arkansas, Oregon. I like a South Carolina team. They're 5-0. They did beat Virginia twice this weekend. Virginia's not that great this year. They do have some talent. They are pretty decent offensively, but really couldn't get anything going against South Carolina. And of course, you've got teams like Florida, Texas A&M, and Northwestern. I think we'll be there. So this weekend, what did we learn? Expect the unexpected when it comes to softball. With Oklahoma, a tight win against Washington, a tight win against Duke. We saw they could do that last year, and I think there's no one better in the circle than Oklahoma is this year. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of ball left to be played, of course. Getting back to Nebraska and sort of the Jordy Bahl. She pitched a couple of innings this weekend, kind of landed funny, got a little bit of an ankle going on. I think she's day to day. I haven't heard anything kind of come out from Nebraska or anyone else involving NCAA softball that would know. No sources are really saying anything much other than she's day to day with that injury. There were some injuries, of course, with UCLA, a lot of moving parts. So injuries are going to play a part just like they do every year. And hopefully these athletes will be able to bounce back and get back on the field this year. Something crazy was going on with the Cal-Louisiana game. I don't know much about the suspensions that are going to come out from that, but I do know that this year there has been a statement from NCAA. I guess it was put into place last year and it came into effect this year that the assistant coaches cannot come out of the dugout and approach the umpires and discuss calls and that kind of stuff. It has to come from the head coach. Now, if the head coach, of course, has been thrown out or ejected, whatever, then an assistant coach will be kind of put in that place and they'll become the head coach and yada, yada, yada. The thing is, they don't want assistant coaches. They don't want all these other people coming out of the dugout to argue balls and strikes or plays or outs or whatever they saw. So there was sort of a little bit of animosity, if you will. There was a run scored on a pass ball where Louisiana scored a run. And during that time, it was a torrential downpour. It was a lot of rain coming down. The ball was wet. The field was wet. It was really bad conditions. The umpires didn't stop the game and say, hey, let's wait a little bit, or let's postpone the game, or let's do this, whatever. They just let the kids play through it. Well, you have Cal out there pitching and just could not get a ball across the plate. The pitcher was struggling really bad, had no grip, and that's, that's expected. So the Cal staff sort of had an issue with that. It was a pass ball, run scored, gave Louisiana the lead. So the assistant coach, I don't know her name, but she, snapped out of the dugout and I think she took offense to the young lady that scored from Louisiana, how, she got to the plate and stepped on the plate, was excited. I get, everybody kind of gets that, but you add that to the fact that they were mad that the game was still going on. So she starts to go after the umpire. So they're holding her back. The catcher sort of gets involved too. She ends up getting ejected. I didn't see that she did anything other than what everybody else was doing. I think the umpire just saw that, heard that, and then went ahead and ejected her from the game too. So a lot to come out of that. And as I hear more, kind of if there is a suspension or if there is something, like that, I will keep you posted on that. So, but that is a new rule. Assistant coaches need to keep their distance from the umpires and allow the head coaches to kind of do their talks and stuff. So, like I said, over on our Facebook page, we do have our power rankings. So I did want to mention those briefly. And that's just from me. It's a foul pole to foul pole thing. It's nothing official or anything like that. So we'll start with the Division I. I've got Oklahoma as number one until they lose or until they start to struggle. I think they're going to be there. The power rankings, I think the rest of the top five is going to be the one that's going to be doing the fluctuating this year. So right now I've got Texas right there. They just look really good right now. Oklahoma State with Kenny Gajewski's looking good. I've got Georgia at number 4, and I've got Tennessee at number 5. So the SEC is really looking good again this year, and they always do, really. There's always going to be a team there. Surprised not to have an ACC team there. I do like a Duke. I like Florida State. They did take a step back against Charlotte, first game of the season, but they righted the ship this weekend. Clemson losing that last one to Missouri. I don't think it's going to hurt them in the long run, but they're all knocking on the door to get into the power rankings, and maybe next week they will be there. Division II. You got North Georgia taking the top spot in the power rankings this week. West Texas A&M, followed by Cal State San Marcos, Nova Southeastern, and followed up by Tampa in Division II. So if you want to keep up with Division II, you can go to NCAA softball. You can click on Division II. You can see all their rankings. You can see everything they do. I don't exactly know who they have where in their rankings. Not a whole lot of games have been played in Division II, but we will try to keep you as updated as possible with Division II. There's not a whole lot other than Game Changer stuff like that where I find my stuff, but that's where I get my information from. And for the D3, no one's really playing yet as far as official games and stuff like that. There's not a whole lot out there. Everybody kind of gets rolling towards the latter part of this month. So the Division III, you've got Trine at number 1, Salisbury at number 2, Barry at number 3, Co at number 4, and Rowan at number 5. And again, not too much information. NCAA doesn't like Division II and Division III all that much, but I'm going to continue trying to find as much information about these teams as I can and try to post about them as much as I can do as well. I follow them on Game Changer, try to keep up with who's doing what and where, and kind of keep you abreast of what's going on in the other divisions, not just Division I. If you do have us over there on YouTube, if you've gone over there and checked us out at Foul Pole to Foul Pole on YouTube, we do a game of the week, and with it being week 1, we sort of did 2 this week. So there's 2 breakdown videos just showing the highlights. So it's youtube.com/@foulpole to foul pole. Really condensed games that we'll be putting out over there. So each week I'll be doing 1 or 2 games of the week, but there's a playlist over there as well. And the play is called just Game of the Week. and you can watch a condensed version, about 12, 15 minutes worth of a game. Instead of watching like the whole hour and a half, maybe you can check it out on your lunch break or whatever, or just check out the biggest moments from a game. That's really what we're trying to do, is trying to condense the game down just a little bit. So we're doing that. This week, we have a couple of episodes coming out. Stacy Johnson from Corning, her episode will be coming out this week. That'll actually be going out tomorrow. And then Thursday, we have a special episode with Tim Damaris from Mark Pro. If you guys have ever heard, I'm sure you've heard of muscle stimulation, and Mark Pro and Mark Pro Plus is a device to kind of help with muscle recovery, do some stimulation and stuff like that to help these athletes get back on the field. So, we are churning them out, and we are recording an episode tonight. We have a couple of different guests that'll be coming on over the next week. So we do have some episodes that are kind of sitting in the chamber. They'll be going out over the next couple of weeks. If you guys have some topics and stuff you want me to talk about or get into, I can definitely, do my research and get into that kind of stuff too. Whatever it is, whatever your topic is. I do want to shine some light on the JUCO level and the NAIA. I appreciate everything that they do for Division I softball. And of course, we have to push that sort of that front runner, continue to push that front runner out so that the rest of the divisions can kind of get their love as well. With that being said, we don't have too much going on early part of this week. There are some teams that are getting going on Wednesday. So we do have the Clearwater, St. Pete, and we have, some other, I just don't remember the names of their sort of the preseason tournaments or early season tournaments that we have going on. So we have some big time matchups coming up. We'll be breaking those games down every day during those tournaments and stuff. We'll be breaking down sort of the action, not doing sort of like a weekend wrap up. We'll be doing sort of a daily post-mortem. And what I mean by that is just kind of taking everything in and sort of giving you my opinion on stuff, or just, sharing some of the news for you. I know it's a lot to keep up with. It is a ton for me to keep up with, and I'm trying to do the best I can to give you the most accurate information that I can. Of course, you guys know me. I'm just like you guys. I'm not some professional scout or some professional softball guy or whatever. I just do it as a hobby, and I try to relay as much information over to you guys as I can. So I do appreciate you guys checking this one out. It's a lot of fun getting in here, breaking some stuff down. I'm excited that the season is back in full swing. It seems like the season is so short and we have to wait so long. So I'm going to try to put this stuff out every day for you, sort of a breakdown, and see kind of what's going on out there. In the meantime, too, when there's not a whole lot of in-game action, that kind of stuff, I will be hitting on some of my favorite topics around recruiting, giving you guys some ideas and stuff like that. We're still going to continue talking about the mental game and that kind of stuff, too. So there's a lot of content coming at you. If you know somebody that likes this type of stuff, man, please share it with them. And if you share it with a friend, make sure you tell them you love them.